Story time about how I was sexually harassed twice while working at Walmart. So a little background information. This all happened last year. So originally I was working in a warehouse, but whenever COVID hit, lost my job, I had to get a new job. So I applied at Walmart in the electronics section because they paid more money, period. And on my second day, I finally went and started working in electronics. So they had asked some of the employees to show me around. So while this one employee was showing me around, he took me to the back where the photos were. Well, whenever I got back there, this employee named Terry said, "Oh, she's mine." I just laughed and brushed it off because I felt super uncomfortable and awkward. And he knew I was underage because my name tag was yellow. But even after that, he still kept coming up to me, calling me weird names, just being a total creep. Like, he would keep coming up to me and get super close to me to the point where I could literally feel him fucking breathing on my face. So of course I told my manager about it. They said he's done this before, so I was like, why the fuck is he still here? So they moved me to garden. And while I was working in the gardening section, I met this guy named Jordan. Like for a part 2. Part 2 of how I was sexually harassed twice while working at Walmart. Something I forgot to mention in the first part, I reported Terry several times and they still did nothing about it. So like I said, then I met this kid Jordan, him and I started getting close, and work actually started to become fun. Well, finally, after a month, we decided that we were going to go out to lunch during work. So the day that we went out to lunch, he kept telling me that he needed to tell me something. But he was like beating around the bush the whole time. Like for some reason, he just couldn't get out what he wanted to tell me. But then he kept trying to change the subject like he wasn't the one who brought it up in the first place. I should have took that as a red flag before we went to lunch, but I didn't. So he keeps going on about it in the car, right? And then he's like, I'm not really 20, I'm 25 turning 26. So then for some reason after that, whenever he saw my mood change, this guy has the audacity to start touching my legs, fucking rubbing my inner thigh and shit. I kept telling him to stop. I was like, what the fuck are you doing? So then I told him I'm getting out of the car. And he says, I'm not gonna let you, like for part 3. Part 3 of how I got sexually harassed twice while working at Walmart. So like I said, he wouldn't let me out of the car, but then we got back to work. And then he had the audacity to keep asking if I was okay when he literally just sexually harassed me in the car. So I went to the bathroom, literally had a whole fucking mental breakdown. I called my mom to come get me because I was not finna stay there. So the next time that I went back to work, I grabbed my stuff and I gave it to one of the workers to go and give to a manager and tell them that I was quitting. Well, one of the managers caught me walking out the back door and she was like, what's wrong? So I immediately broke down. I started telling her what was going on. And then a crowd of people came around us being nosy as fuck, listening to what I was saying. And she was like, you're not quitting. I'm going to take care of this. So she sent me home and she said that she would call me whenever it was taken care of. So 2 days goes past. I'm like, why the fuck hasn't she called? So then I call and I found out that she fired me. So I reported everything to Walmart ethic team and they just closed my case. They basically didn't do shit about it. Oh, and Jordan wasn't really a manager. He was a supervisor. Should I try to take this to court? Storytime about my shitty ass ex-boyfriend. So a little background information. My ex and I have been dating for about 2 years. And throughout those 2 years, he was a dick. He would cheat on me, talk to other girls more than me, but of course I pretended that everything was perfect in my relationship. I would brag to all these people about how my relationship was so good, blah blah blah, and everything else. Because it's embarrassing whenever bitches can talk shit because your relationship is very toxic. Like, listen to this bullshit. The whole 2 years we were dating, I had over 10 girls DM me on Instagram saying that they screwed my boyfriend at his house. I never confronted him about it. I was just one of those girls that cared way too much about what everybody else thought. Okay, now fast forward. And it was a Friday at school, and Thanksgiving break was the following day. And him and I have this whole plan to spend the whole break together, because literally a week before that, he was on vacation in North Carolina for 2 whole weeks. Well, instead of going with him after school, I decided to go home, get an overnight bag like for part 2. Part 2 about my shitty ex-boyfriend. So like I said, the original plan was for us to go together to his house after school. But I was like, I'm going to be spending the whole week over there. I should probably pack some clothes and get a shower. So after school, he drove me to my house. And he said that his parents wanted to have dinner together, so he had to go back to his house. And he would pick me up later. So when I got to my house, I got ready and everything, blah, blah, blah. And by this time, it was like 8 o'clock. Well, I kept texting and calling him, asking him where he's at, if he's coming to get me still. Then I realized that none of my text messages were going through. So then I go to text him on Snap. And what do you know? I couldn't find him on there. And then I call him off my mom's phone. He answers the phone and hangs up right away. Well, we were supposed to have a little party at his house too, that all of my friends were going to. So I texted every single one of them. None of them answered the phone. And I remembered that my one friend had shared her location with me before. So I went and looked at her location and where was she at? My boyfriend's house. So while I sat at home crying that whole week, he was throwing parties and cheating on me with my friends. And when we went back to school, he acted like we were never in a relationship.
Toxic best friend story time. My best friend's name was Jessica, and she was from Pennsylvania, and she was from a broken home. And when she met my mom, she absolutely loved my mom, and we became fast friends really quick. She always wanted to come over to my house, and when I didn't want her to come over for some reason because I wanted to be with my family, she would get really upset. She became really possessive over me with my family and other people at school, so I basically couldn't have any other friends except for her. And when she would see me hang out with people, she would start making up rumors and accuse me of having talked bad about other people. Jessica was also really promiscuous, but I never judged her for it. I supported her in whatever she wanted to do, like hang out with older boys, like much older boys. And one day she came to me and said that she was pregnant and that she was planning on having an abortion. 2 months later, she came out and said this. Part 2 of Toxic Best Friend. TikTok deleted this, don't know why. So my best friend comes to my house having had 2 abortions in 1 month at this point, and she was upset, she was crying, she felt sick, she had nausea. I gave her medication like ibuprofen or something. I didn't know what to do. I was a 13-year-old child. And then she told me that she was in love with me and that she didn't know what she would do if I didn't love her the same way back. At this point, my hands were shaking, my knees were shaking. I didn't know how to help her. The thought of her being sick at my house and her family not knowing was making me feel horrible. The fact that I hadn't told my mom at that point made me feel horrible. So I went and I told my mom. She called her family right away, and they came to pick her up. They took her to the hospital right away. My mom and I were checking on her every single day during the time that she was in the hospital, calling, finding out how she was. The next week, okay, so people were judging me in the last video because I snitched, but I was 13, you guys. What would you do if you were 13 and your friend was sick in your house?
Story time about how I dated 2 brothers at the same time, and they both knew it. So I'm a personal trainer, and last year these 2 brothers came into my gym and wanted personal training. Well, I signed them up and they started training with me. They both constantly flirted with me, but I knew that they both had girlfriends. So I would usually train them at the same time, but they decided to train separately. This is when things got a little tricky. So one of the brothers, I'll call him James. James was always flirting with me, and he made it very clear that he liked me. Every time he would flirt with me, I'd be like, hey, don't you have a girlfriend? He'd say, yeah, but we're kind of breaking up soon. I never took him seriously though. And the second brother, let's call him John. John also flirted a tiny bit, but he was a little bit more shy than James. Lo and behold, James comes into the gym one day and says that he broke up with his girlfriend, and he started crying, and I felt really bad for him, and we talked for a bit, and then we trained, and then afterward he asked me if I wanted to get a coffee. I said sure. Went to get a coffee, and we basically talked about his relationship. At the end of the coffee date, he actually kissed me. Watch part 2, it's already part 2 of how I dated 2 brothers at the same time, and they both knew it. So James told me that he broke up with his girlfriend, and we ended up going for a coffee, and he actually kissed me. Because I was his personal trainer, I thought of him as a client. So basically, I didn't think it would go anywhere. On my next session with John, his brother, John says, hey, James said that you guys went on a little date. And I said, it wasn't a date. He said, well, when am I going to take you on a date? I said, I thought you had a girlfriend. He said, no, we actually just broke up over the weekend. So I said, sure, we can have lunch. It doesn't have to be a date. And he said, sure, that's fine. So we ended up going for lunch, and he was way more shy than his brother James. And this actually made me like him. We basically had a 3-hour-long lunch. We talked about every single thing you can imagine. We got along super well, and I love that he wasn't trying to flirt with me the whole time like his brother. Then COVID hit and my gym closed, so I couldn't train anyone. Well, this didn't stop them from wanting to hang out with me separately. I basically started going out with each of them separately, and they both knew it. So one day I'm at the beach with John, and his ex comes up to us and throws a beer at him. Part 3 of how I dated 2 brothers at the same time, and they both knew it. I was at the beach with John, one of the brothers, and his ex came up to us and threw a beer at him. And she said, wow, you're doing it again. I was confused. I had no idea what she was talking about. So John says, James and I need to talk to you. He drove me to his place where James was waiting for us. And they basically told me that they were both dating me at the same time and that they didn't mind, and they just basically wanted me to be their shared girlfriend. I was totally confused, bewildered, and I just didn't even know how to respond. And I asked him what his ex-girlfriend meant by, you're doing it again. And he explained that she was also their shared girlfriend and that she wanted to be with them again. It was so messed up. So I didn't speak to them for a few days because I was really confused, but then James talked to me and he said, look, if you're not comfortable with this, we won't do it, but let's just try it out. Just be our shared girlfriend, you'll see, you'll love it. So I became their girlfriend, and we dated for 3 months, showered me with gifts, paid for everything, and of course I had so much attention. One day I would hang out with one, and then the following day I'd hang out with with the other one. Part 4 of how I dated two brothers at the same time and they both knew it. So they basically asked me to be their shared girlfriend. I said yes because I liked them and they were actually really good boyfriends. So we dated for 3 months and then their ex shared girlfriend. So yeah, they had a girlfriend before me who they shared. She sent me a DM on Instagram and she was like, hey, look, I need to tell you something. She warned me that they were looking for a new girlfriend and that they would break up with me. I didn't believe her. Instead, I went to James and John and I said, look, is this true? And they said yes. They told me they only dated girls for 3 months, no more. And that basically our time was up. I was shocked. I felt so used. And stupidly enough, I had fallen in love with them, I know. After that, they didn't talk to me at all. And I found out that they both had a new girlfriend and they were both sharing her. Like me. So I started an Instagram group with all of their ex-girlfriends. And we told their new girlfriend, and she broke up with them. But guess what? John asked me to be his girlfriend again through text. We've been texting for like a week now. What do I do?
Toxic best friend story time part 3. So this week at school was horrible. I show up and there are so many things written on my locker. Nobody knew. The principal had it all cleaned up. The boys were being really aggressive with me, writing me letters, threatening letters. One boy tried to push me up against the wall and tried to kiss me. I didn't let him, but that was that first time that had happened. And I had already been bullied a lot at this point, so I wasn't too surprised, but I was like, why would she be doing this after telling me that she loved me? Right. It also didn't help that the principal made it a point to come to my class and interrogate everyone about the locker situation. No one spoke, but it made me even more of a target. I was already so bullied at this point. I was dying. And I never really saw her after that. Her parents flew her back to Pennsylvania because this all happened in Nicaragua. All I know is that she's a stripper now and she still tries to contact me on Instagram and my brothers on social media. They don't pay attention to her, and I know that she's had trouble with... Oh, you want to know my brow routine? Okay. I just brush my brows with a spoolie, super quick, and then I use my glossy brow blank, and I just draw little thin lines all throughout my brow. And my secret is that I never drag the brow all the way down. I pull it out. This way it lifts the eye. You don't want your brow coming down here because it doesn't lift your eye. And then I just go this way, and that's it. Oh, and by the way, you can click the link in my bio to buy